Hello and welcome to Poetry in Style. Did you already grab your coffee? Because today we have got a really interesting video for you. Today we're gonna talk about a poet from the USA called Joy Harjo. I've got here one of her book, An American Sunrise. Joy Harjo comes from the Muskogee Nation, a nation of a Native American tribe which came from Mississippi at the beginning and moved to Oklahoma. In her book, she talks about what we call the Trail of Tears, which is one of the most infamous and dark part of the American history. I've taken some notes to give you some information on the Trail of Tears. Between 1830 and 1850, approximately 100,000 Native Americans were forced to leave their homeland in the southeast of the United States and relocate to what we call the Indian Territories. Thousands of people died on the Trail of Tears from diseases, starvation, and because of the harsh weather. The act was signed on the 28th of May 1830 by the President Andrew Jackson. It was a very dark period of the American history, and it was already controversial at the time. And in this book, and in many of her books, Joy Harjo talks about this time. So here you can see this picture of the Trail of Tears, and as she says here in the text, this is only one trail. There were many trails of tears from the homelands of the Muskogee Creek Nation west, just as there were for the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Seminole, and many other tribal nations. It's interesting, isn't it? The Trail of Tears. As she said here, that was only one Trail of Tears, and there were many different trails of tears. There were a lot of different Native American nations and tribes which had to move because the settlers wanted to live in a certain area. And it was a very disastrous period of the American history. A period which is sad, but which is important to know nonetheless. I think it's really important to know our history as people from the world, to know the good things and the bad things, to be able to heal and move forward, and to be able to show some respect to different cultures. And I appreciate the fact that nowadays I believe that we have more and more awareness to these cultures and more respect for them. And this poet, she is really great because she really shows that very well, and she talks about it. And in the book, she has a lot of different anecdotes. She's got a lot of very beautiful poems, and she also has some text in the Native American language. I believe that was spoken by the Muskogee people, and I find that really interesting. In 1990, a Congress of Indigenous Peoples met outside of Quito, Ecuador, to discuss the Colombian Centenary, a celebration by immigrant populations of the arrival of Christopher Columbus to the Western Hemisphere on his finance expedition to find a trade route to India. Tribal people came from all of the Americas and met to discuss the destructive and monumental changes since this European explorer arrival. We met together to gain insight and strength and ponder how we would continue to move forward past the massive destruction and disrespect of the earth, mind, body, and spirit, and to continue our sovereignty as native nations. In the women's circle, a striking Bolivian Indian woman in a bowler hat stood up. She welcomed us and noted that she was surprised at all of the natives attending from the United States. "We thought John Wayne had killed all of you." This was not a joke. "And why," she asked, "do you call yourselves America? This hemisphere is one body, one person. She is America." I also thought that was an interesting text to discuss with this Congress held in 1990 with indigenous peoples in Ecuador and coming from all of the countries of the Americas. And with this Bolivian woman like being surprised that people come from the United States, Native American people, because she believed that John Wayne killed them all. That's an interesting thing to say. And actually, as she said it, that was not a joke. And at the end, she said, why do you call yourselves America? This hemisphere is one body, one person. She is America. So the reason why that's interesting is because, you know, as you know, it's called the United States of America. And I remember seeing discussions with Latino people, and they were being annoyed that the people from the USA described themselves as Americans, when actually all the continent, and actually the continent, North America, Central America, and South America, they are the Americas. So I just found that an interesting anecdote to talk about. And sometimes they call them the Estadounidenses, Estados Unidos, which being the United States. But I digress. Joy Harjo is not just a poet. She's also a musician and, I believe, a dancer. She plays with a band and she plays a saxophone, which I really like, by the way, because the saxophone was invented by one of my compatriots, Adolphe Sax, coming from the small Belgian town of Dinant, which is a very beautiful town that you should visit at some point if you come here. And what I really like about Joy Harjo is that she's got a very, very light style in her poems, and there's a lot of spirituality. And I chose one poem that I'm gonna recite and I'm gonna analyze with you. Desire's dog. I was Desire's dog. I ate when I was fed. I did what I was told. I knew how to sit, stand and roll over on command. When I was petted, I was made whole. Even when I dreamed a chain around my neck. Desire is a bone with traces of fat. It's the wag smell of a beach in heat. It's that pinch heat at the end of a beat. It's a stick thrown into a rabbit chase. I lay at the feet of desire for years. Then I heard the song calling me. It was a woman in a red dress. It was a man with a gun in his hand. It was a table filled with fruit and flowers. It was a fox of fire, a bird of stone. Then it was gone. What was left disintegrated by rain and wind. I had followed desire to the end. I find that text, Desire's Dog, really interesting and really relevant to what this book is about and to what our lives are about, what we can learn from that text. Desire, it's a natural function, it's a natural thing that we have. But if you only follow desire, and that's the only thing, at some point you become a slave of your desire. Like a dog, actually. I love dogs, but dogs are really primitive and they follow very primitive functions, following their desire. You know, and at some point they are becoming some kind of slaves. They have a chain around their neck, like she said in the poem. Even when I dreamed a chain around my neck. And it's like, when I was petted, I was made whole. It's like, you have a master, and when your master gives you approval, then you feel good. When he doesn't give you approval, then you don't feel good. Then you become the slave of other people's approval. You become the slave of what people want you to be, and your desires are being influenced by what society created in you. Here you have a very simple example of a dog, obviously, that when he was fed, he ate. You know, when he was told something, he did it. You know, he knew when to sit, he knew when to stand, he knew when to roll, all those things, you know. And at the end, I find it interesting when she says, then it was gone. What was left disintegrated by rain and wind. I had followed desire to the end. You know, there's more in life than desire. As I said, obviously we need to have some kind of desire. We need to have some kind of things we want. We need to have pleasure in life. But if that's the only thing we follow, then we become the slave of it. You know? We have responsibility. We have people around us. We have duty. And that's what makes us actually free. If you only follow your desire and you think you're free, then you're not. You're like a dog. The dog maybe thinks he's free because he doesn't know anything else. Because he's used to having this chain around his neck, to being walked in the park when the master wants to walk him in the park, if the master is a good master. And that's the same thing when it comes to human society. Obviously here we have like the extreme example of the Trail of Tears. We have the extreme examples also of slavery that we had in other parts of history as well. But think about it. Don't you think that somehow, somehow we, to a certain degree, we are being made into desires dark in this society? Think about university, spending years in university, like trying to study, your teacher telling you what to do, your parents telling you what to do, the society telling you what to do, and at some point, the last thing you want is, okay, you know what, I'm gonna have my diploma, I'm gonna have that moment, I'm gonna have that, and you just follow that desire of having this quick reward, instead of thinking a bit further, thinking further like a human being, like a spiritual being, instead of a dog, I don't think we are dogs, and I think we have a lot of ability to think. That's why I think making those videos and writing poems and having those discussions is really important. Because deep down we know that we are so much more than what society makes us be, And that's another example for me where it is relevant, and where we can use history also to learn about ourselves. And the last thing I want to say is that, again, I think we need to learn a lot more about people around us. We need to learn more about these different cultures, these different people. We have something to learn from each culture. We have something to learn from each person on this planet. And I think that Native American cultures are very interesting. There are a lot of different cultures that are really interesting, but these cultures, they're often very misunderstood, and they've been through a lot of hard things. The Trail of Tears is as an example of that. But they still exist, and you can still learn a lot. And yeah, so if you're interested in that, I really strongly advise you to check out Joy Harjo. She's great, and I hope you like the video. And in the meantime, I have to finish my coffee, and then I realized that I already finished my coffee before, so I don't know why I'm doing that. So have a good day.